My name is Holger Bruchelt. I'm a program manager at Microsoft for SAP Architecture in the integration. And I'm very excited actually to take you on a journey from your SAP system into the cloud and starting to innovate there. The thing I don't want to start actually with the solution, but I actually want to really take a look back and exactly look at this very long-lasting history and connection that we have with SAP. So over 25 years ago, actually, we started our journey when Hasso Plattner and Bill Gates sat together in Waldorf to talk about the joint innovations. At that time, obviously looking at SQL Server, looking at Windows Server and stuff like that. But then over the years, over the decades, not only on our CEO level, we really worked very, very closely together, but we also aligned across all our different levels in both of our companies. So the last big joint coming together basically was when Christian Klein and Satya Nadella joined the stage at the SAP Rise event. And actually in this event, they talked a lot about innovation, of what you can do actually by combining your SAP with Microsoft technologies. One of the things that stood out was obviously the joint innovations that we were doing around the Teams integration, bringing SAP solutions into Teams, allowing SAP solutions to interact with information from your Microsoft environments. But that actually was only one part of the whole announcement. Obviously, they also talked about our long-standing collaboration. They talked about how SAP is a big customer of Microsoft and runs their SAP systems on Azure. And we talked about Microsoft. Microsoft is one of the biggest SAP customers, running the SAP environment completely in Azure. And then we also talked a lot about how can we actually help customers get their S/4HANA system or their SAP systems into Microsoft Azure in the cloud and run their SAP systems in a cloud environment with all the flexibilities. So obviously, if we do this, if you want to get your systems into the cloud, the first thing that you need to do is really look at the whole journey. Like, where do you begin? How do you get your systems into Azure? So it typically starts with preparing your landscapes, your environment, making sure what are the prerequisites, how to get it there. Then it's all about what are the things that we need to get the systems up, what tools, what technologies, what services do we need to consider to migrate the systems to Azure. And then once we are in Azure, then it's all about running. How can we optimize the operation of your SAP system? How can we make sure that when you manage your SAP system, that you get really the best out of all the functionalities and features that both SAP and Microsoft provide you with? And then once you are there, then it's all about innovation, really unleashing the possibilities of the data that you have with your SAP system and all the capabilities and features and functions that are available on the Azure cloud. So before we get there, actually, one of the prerequisites is, well, you need to have an Azure region that you can actually deploy your environment to. So across the globe, Microsoft Azure has a lot of regions to really be very local to our customers, so that latency, geopolitical requirements are fulfilled, and that you can actually run your SAP systems on Azure. All these different regions are actually connected by an Azure network, basically, that allows you to have high throughput and low latency connectivities between your different instances. I already mentioned not only the breadth and reach of these regions is really, really critical, but also that you are actually allowed to put your business into the cloud. So that's one of the reasons why Microsoft is really focusing a lot on these compliance, on fulfilling compliances across the different, across the industry, across the different regions, that we are able to fulfill the regional and industry-specific compliances so that you actually can migrate your SAP system to Azure. Once all of this is done, then the first step is actually, well, what can I do? How can I put my systems on Azure? And one of the requirements, obviously, looking especially at SAP HANA, where we need these very, very big machines, is that we have the resources, the capabilities of virtual machines to run this workload in the cloud. And that's actually on Azure, where we have a huge breadth of certified, SAP certified virtual machines that allow you to run your SAP workload in the cloud in Azure. So starting from very small virtual machines that are maybe good for prototyping, sandbox environments to really big 24 terabyte virtual memory machines that also fulfill the highest requirements, I would say, of running SAP workload, S/4HANA workload in the cloud. So we have a huge breadth of these certified virtual machines, SAP certified virtual machines, that really give you a lot of flexibility to run your SAP workload in Azure. So now we have the prerequisites. We have the regions, we have the virtual machines. What's the next step? Well, the next step is obviously to install your SAP system. And there we also have a lot of different options how you get started. You can use a beautiful user interface in the Azure portal to create a virtual machine, to deploy an SAP system. We have Terraform and Ansible scripts, so really open source components that help you get started. But we also have been working with SAP actually on the SAP Cloud Appliance Library, a beautiful tool by SAP that allows you to quickly install a demo or test environment to test out new functionalities of S/4HANA within a few minutes. And then once you're done, you can just stop the virtual machine and get rid of it if you're done with testing. Now, what we've done is we've worked with SAP to actually enhance the SAP Cloud Appliance Library to be also able to deploy fully productive S/4HANA systems. So with the same user experience, with the same look and feel, you can easily open up the SAP Cloud Appliance Library, select your S/4HANA system, provide a few additional components like whether you want to have a high availability setup or not, and then after clicking through the wizard, you can really start and deploy a fresh S/4HANA system from scratch. Now, we obviously know that a lot of customers are not only starting from scratch and really deploying fresh new SAP systems. A lot of customers start from an on-premise ECC environment with NADB, with SQL Server, with something like that. And that's another area where we've been working very closely with SAP to release the DMO to Azure, the database migration option to Azure, which allows to take your existing ECC system and then do a one-step conversion and migration, basically, of your ECC system on-premise to S/4HANA in the cloud. So another beautiful way how we can actually help customers get started to migrate their workload into Azure. So now the really exciting stuff starts. So we have now our SAP system running in the cloud in Azure, and now we can really start to innovate. We can look at what are beautiful ways how we can improve the operations of our SAP system. So not yet looking really at the end user perspective, but really looking at innovating the way how you run and operate an SAP system. So looking, for example, at the Azure Monitor, which allows you to give you beautiful insights, not only in the infrastructure that Azure provides, so the virtual machines and all this kind of stuff, but really also looking inside your SAP system, potentially really looking at what business processes are working and correlating this information with the information that you get from Azure. Another thing is backup. Everyone talks about backup, and obviously this is a super important functionality that is required for mission-critical workload, as we see with the SAP side. Now, with the Azure backup functionality, you have basically a one-click experience that allows you to back up your SAP system even across regions. So maybe your SAP system is running in Frankfurt in Germany, for example, but then you want to make sure that in case of a disaster, you can have your data stored somewhere else, maybe another region within Germany, maybe another region in Europe. So this is just one click away, basically, so the administrators of your SAP system can easily make sure that the data that you have in your SAP system is safe and available. There are a lot of other functionalities that we could talk about, but I actually want to pick out one additional thing that is getting more and more critical, and that's the whole security aspect. Obviously, putting your SAP system in the cloud is dependent on a lot of things, and trust is certainly one very important thing of that. I think the trust component is something that we clearly show by SAP running SAP on Azure, Microsoft running SAP on Azure, and a lot of other customers across the globe already running that and trusting their data with Microsoft. The other thing is, how can we make sure that we can actually protect the data that you have in Azure? And for that, Microsoft is investing a lot in the security aspects. So we have thousands of professionals working at Microsoft that are just looking for the different security components. And actually, while this security aspect is global, so it's also for Azure Active Directory, for Office 365, but then obviously also for your virtual machines. What we've done, we've enhanced one of our functionalities called Azure Sentinel to not only take the telemetry data that we're getting, for example, from Office 365 and Azure Active Directory, but also to allow the connectivity inside your SAP system. And with this data that we now have, we can correlate events from Office 365 with events from the SAP system and take actions out of that. Think of a scenario where my user logs on to Office 365 from Japan, but at the same time, my user also logs on via the SAP GUI to an SAP system. That can definitely raise an alert, and we can surface this information and take appropriate actions. So this is actually just the operational side of running your SAP system on Azure. And actually, this is something where we provide a lot of tools and flexibility for our customers and also partners, obviously, so that partners can also take advantage of these functionalities and provide the best experience of running an SAP system on Azure. But that's, again, just really the starting point. If we look at now, what can we do running your SAP system on Azure, there are a lot of functionalities that come to mind. So here are a few of these integrate and innovation scenarios that we see with our customers. Starting from the pure integration, where we're talking about, well, your SAP system is for a lot of customers the heart of the organizations, but there are a lot of other third-party, other tools out there, and it's all about how can we integrate these solutions with an SAP system. That's where we have tools that simplify this integration by leveraging triggers, events, and connecting these systems together. When we talk about data, and I'll take a quick look at that later in a second, when we talk about visualizing the data, not only again from the SAP system, but also from non-SAP systems, we have a lot of functionalities that provide you with these insights to take the best actions out of different silos that you might have in your organizations. When it comes to the whole DevOps experience, obviously SAP is very much saying, well, this is the core, this is the stable system. Keep your core clean. So now we need to innovate and expand our scenarios outside of the SAP system, and that's actually something where we also see a lot of interest by customers to leverage our DevOps tool. Think of GitHub Actions, about our serverless and Azure Functions functionalities that allow you to quickly create new applications while connecting to your SAP systems. Now, actually, when it comes to these development scenarios, we see there's obviously a shortage of professional developers. Still, the requirements from the business are always there. Actually, they're ever increasing. There are more and more of fantastic ideas that business users that really work with your SAP systems and non-SAP systems come up with. So in order to empower these business users, we have a low-code, no-code platform, the Power Platform that allows you, or that enables exactly these business users to create new applications without really knowing how to develop, how to write code, and then connect them to SAP and other scenarios. Now, the last thing that I quickly want to touch on is the whole collaborative experience. As mentioned before, this was one of the key themes by Satya Nadella and Christian Klein when they talked about the Teams integration in the SAP RISE event, where it's all about how can we bring the data, the crucial relevant data from your SAP system, from other systems, to the end user. And that's where we see beautiful integrations in Teams, using the Microsoft Graph, in Excel. So this is really something where this connectivity of bringing different user interfaces to the users where they are, to the different to the individual end users, really can shine. So these are some of the process-related integration scenarios. Actually, when we look at now combining these huge data assets that you have, not only in your SAP system, but also in your non-SAP system, then there's really a journey that we can take our customers with. So starting with unlocking the data, that we empower the users to connect to an SAP system, to connect to non-SAP system, and bring this all together in a huge data lake. So there we have a lot of functionalities that help our customers to exactly do this. Once you have the data accessible, then you can run beautiful analytics scenarios on it. You can use machine learning functionalities. You can use tools like on the business technology platform or on Microsoft Azure to really expose this data and build scenarios out of this. And with this knowledge, you can then really start the next step and really take action. So really this from insight to action concept, and expose this data, regardless where it's coming from, in an Office 365, in Teams, in other applications, to really empower the end user to work with the relevant data. So this is just a short overview of how this can actually look like. So you have your single source of truth in your SAP system. You might have other data pools or data silos actually in your company. So what we can do is we can really expose this information and bring it to the end user in an easy to consume way. So for example, if we look at an SAP Fiori user interface, we can bring this data into all these beautiful tiles that allow the end user to connect to an SAP data. But then at the very same time, what we also see is that sometimes the very same user that was just using the SAP Fiori user interface now wants to work with the same data from Excel, or they want to work with the same data in a Power Platform application, or in SharePoint, in Teams, in Outlook. So it's really about getting the data that is available in your company to the users in a very easy and consumable way. And that's something that we have been working on with SAP, especially over the last few months after the announcement of the expanded partnership, to really make sure that we have a single sign-on in place, that a user logs on to the Fiori Launchpad and then can consume data from the SAP, but also from the non-SAP world. That the very same user can log on to Outlook, where he probably is already logged on, and from there, the user can actually approve a purchase order or can work on other workflow items. So this is another area where we really see that the joint collaboration that we are doing with SAP together can really bring a lot of value to the customers. Actually, what we also see is that a lot of partners are really now following this trend and really taking the data that is there in the SAP system and exposing it to the different user interfaces by building beautiful applications. So just to show you a few examples of what is actually coming from SAP and Microsoft, I quickly want to spend a few minutes on the Teams integration. So Satya and Christian, they focused mainly on three different personas. So it's the employee in your organization, obviously, that should be empowered, so that the employee doesn't need to switch to different user interfaces, but the employee can really stay, for example, in her Teams environment, and from her Teams environment, she can access information from SuccessFactors Learning or something like that, so that she really has this one experience in Teams, and from there, she can access all the relevant information. This is actually something very similar to the SAP WorkZone integration. So similar, there is the SAP WorkZone application that allows users to connect to a beautiful SAP dashboard, but at the same time, we can make this information also available in Teams. So again, really empowering the user to work in the user interface that they're happy to work with at this current moment. The next topic that Christian and Satya was focusing on is the supplier. So obviously, especially now in the pandemic, it became really, really important that the whole supply chain is something that needs to be there, that really needs to work, which also means you need to be able to connect and interact with your suppliers in a very easy-to-use way. And that's exactly where we're also working on to bring S/4HANA capabilities into Teams, so that a company can easily communicate via Teams with their different suppliers. The last persona that we're focusing on is the sales persona. So here, very similar like in the supplier scenario, it's all about getting the best experience for the salesperson with the customer. So that's where with the SAP Sales Cloud, we have now an integration that is available in the Teams store, where you can just connect your SAP Sales Cloud experience into Teams, which means when you open up a Teams meeting, for example, then from within this Teams meeting, you can very easily interact with your SAP Sales Cloud environment. So whether it's taking notes, whether it's updating an opportunity in your SAP Sales Cloud environment, you can do this directly from within Teams. So one last thing that I want to actually highlight quickly is the Power Platform, as mentioned before. So we've seen a lot of companies with some fantastic ideas, and I actually have talked to a lot of companies where the business says, look, I have these great simple innovation ideas, but if we talk to IT, it takes too long because this is only a very small project, and it's also not as important as other bigger projects that we are facing on. So unfortunately, these great ideas just are there, and nobody can really work on that. And that's exactly where we see the power of the Power Platform and really bringing these two worlds much closer together with SAP. So the idea is that the SAP system is still obviously the heart of the organization, and the access to the SAP system has to be very restricted and limited. But now with this integration of empowering the business users, we can allow them to create new applications and still connect to the SAP system while still being fully compliant and staying within the boundaries, the security and compliance requirements of the IT organizations. So this is really where we see this side-by-side extensions of building easy SAP applications while connecting to your SAP system really shines. And for this, actually, the Power Platform comes with a lot of scenarios. I mean, I guess the Power BI component is probably the most known tool there to help you really with the analytics scenarios, but also Power Apps to create new applications, Power Automate to automate processes, not only in your SAP system, but also in surrounding systems. Think of an automated process in Excel or in Outlook that from there, when an invoice comes in, extracts the relevant information and actually stores the invoice or creates the invoice in your SAP system. So this is really something where we see a lot of potential, a lot of adoption currently with customers, where we empower the business users, not the pro developers, to create new applications. The important thing here is that the whole Power Platform is built in a way that it empowers the business users, but it also allows you to work together with pro developers, that it is part of the overall customer's governance process and security process. So that's really something where we see a lot of great and new fantastic ideas coming up right now. So with this, actually, I already want to close this quick overview, this quick journey of running your SAP system on premise to running and innovate an S/4HANA system in Azure. There are really a lot of components that make up or that empower our customers to really do this in the best possible way. And I just want to highlight here a few things again, or to summarize a few things again. It's important to really see that this combination of SAP and Microsoft, not only from our own customer experience, that we are running SAP and Microsoft is running SAP, but also this huge ecosystem that we see that empower customers to run SAP and Microsoft. Obviously, we cannot do this alone. We are not doing this alone. We have a lot of partners that are working with this. Westernacher is obviously one important customer here, that helps us, that helps customers to really complete this journey of really getting their on-premises systems into the Azure cloud. And I'm very happy, obviously, that we are working here together, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of new customers using both of our technologies and getting the best out of their SAP and Microsoft environments. With this, thank you very much. I hope you had some great 1.5 days already. And with this, I hope thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.